You can't see it. You don't talk about it. But you carry it. It's the invisible weight that rests quietly on your shoulders every morning. You feel it in the pressure behind your smile, in the pause before you answer someone's question, in the way you check your own thoughts before you speak. Some people call it motivation. Some call it discipline. But deep down, you know it's more than that. It's the weight of expectation. Not just the kind others place on you, but the kind you've picked up yourself over the years, little by little. Every you should. Every why can't you just. Every gold star, every raised eyebrow, every silent glance that told you that wasn't good enough. And so you work harder. You say yes more often. You strive to be excellent, efficient, impressive, or at least quiet enough not to disappoint anyone. But somewhere along the way, you forget who you are beneath all the proving. This is what the weight does. It steals your breath, but so slowly you don't notice. It tightens your smile, but only a little. It makes you second-guess your own voice, just enough to stay silent. It doesn't scream. It whispers. If you don't meet the standard, they'll stop loving you. You have no excuse to fail. Other people are counting on you. Don't mess this up. And worst of all, this is just who I am now. But here's something nobody ever told you. Carrying the weight of other people's expectations doesn't mean you're strong. It just means you've forgotten you're allowed to set it down. And you are. You can pause. You can exhale. You can stop running for just a moment. Because the pressure to be enough, to meet every silent standard, to make everyone proud, to be perfect, it's not the same thing as living. Nobody is born feeling like they have to prove something. Babies don't compare themselves. They don't wonder if they're good enough. They just are. But something happens as we grow. We begin to see ourselves through other people's eyes. And for the first time, we wonder, am I okay the way I am? That's when the pressure begins. Quietly. Softly. But steadily. Sometimes, it starts in our families. A look of disappointment from a parent when your grades drop. A sibling praised for being the smart one or the strong one. A silence that settles in when you talk about what you love. You learn, without anyone saying it directly. Love might depend on performance. Attention might depend on success. Safety might depend on fitting the mold. So you adjust. You get good at reading the room. You hide what feels too weird. You learn what earns a smile and what brings silence. And that lesson sticks. Even when you grow older. Even when you leave home. Even when no one is saying anything at all. You keep hearing those early messages in your own voice. Then school adds its own expectations. You're not just learning. You're being measured, compared, ranked, graded. And somewhere along the way, learning turns into proving. Art becomes competition. Curiosity becomes pressure. Failure becomes shame. You stop asking, what do I want to become? And start asking, what will people think if I mess this up? And then there's the culture we live in. Social media, constant updates, curated perfection. You see people your age with better bodies, better lives, better partners, better dreams. Or at least that's how it looks on the surface. You start to believe that everyone else is ahead. And you're just trying to catch up. The pressure becomes internal. You say to yourself, I should be further by now. I can't let people see I'm struggling. Other people can do it. Why can't I? You start building a version of yourself that looks fine on the outside. But inside, you're tired. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, existentially. Because it's not just about keeping up anymore. It's about not being found out. Not being seen as average. Not being seen as a failure. Not being seen as you really are, unfiltered. That's the hidden cost of expectations. You begin to disappear inside your own life. But here's what no one teaches you in school, and what society rarely says out loud. You're allowed to define what enough means for you. You don't need to chase someone else's timeline. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself they imagined. The pressure didn't start with you. But the freedom to let go? That starts right here. There's a voice inside your mind. It started quietly, sometimes no louder than a whisper, but over the years, it learned how to echo. And now, it doesn't just speak. It weighs. It pushes. It judges. At first, that voice was helpful. It reminded you to do your homework, to behave, to try harder. It sounded a lot like your parents, your teachers, or the world around you. But eventually, it became your own. And here's the problem. Somewhere along the way, the voice stopped encouraging and started demanding. It stopped helping and started hurting. You should be doing more. You're not there yet. You can't mess this up. These thoughts aren't warnings. They're expectations. And they feel like truth. But they're not truth. They're pressure disguised as purpose. The weight of expectation doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes, you're the one carrying the heaviest burden. Not because someone asked you to, but because you believed you had to. You believed success had to look a certain way. You believed that rest equals laziness. That falling short means you're failing. But maybe that voice needs to be challenged. Because here's something we forget: you can be enough and still be growing. You can take a break and still be responsible. You can disappoint others and still be a good person. You don't have to carry everything they gave you. You don't even have to carry everything you gave you. Sometimes, strength is not in holding on, but in letting go. So tonight, let that inner voice grow quieter. Let it soften. Let it rest. You don't have to prove anything right now. You just have to breathe. You've probably felt it before, the pressure to be everything for everyone. The perfect student. The supportive friend. The funny one. The calm one. The one who never says no. The one who always says yes. The one who's got it all figured out. It doesn't come with flashing lights or warning signs. It creeps in silently, through praise, through comparison, through the fear of letting someone down. And before you know it, your life becomes a performance. You start editing your personality like it's a resume. You hide the parts that seem messy. You push yourself to meet standards you never agreed to. You keep showing up, smiling, succeeding, while quietly falling apart. Because no one sees the cost. No one sees the exhaustion behind your eyes. The overthinking that comes with every decision. The guilt that comes with choosing yourself for once. When you live under the weight of expectations, every choice feels risky. Every failure feels personal. Every quiet moment feels like wasted time. But here's the truth you may have forgotten. You weren't meant to be everything. You don't have to fit into every box. You don't have to carry every role. And you don't have to apologize for the pieces of you that are still in progress. Let go of the idea that your worth is tied to performance. You are not a checklist. You are not a character someone else wrote. You are a human being. And you're allowed to just be. Take the pressure off. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself exist outside of what's expected. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. And trust that even then, you are still enough. One of the heaviest parts of expectation isn't what others demand of you, it's what you fear they'll think if you don't deliver. Letting people down feels like failure. Not just in their eyes, but in your own. So, you go the extra mile, not out of love, but out of fear. You say yes when you want to say no. You smile when you want to cry. You give more than you have until there's nothing left for you. Why? Because deep down, you believe love is conditional. You believe that being needed is the same as being valued. That if you disappoint someone, they'll leave. That if you don't meet expectations, you'll lose your place in their world. But here's what you might not realize. The people who truly care about you don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be real. They'd rather have the honest version of you than the polished one who's quietly suffering. You don't have to earn your worth through constant achievement. You don't have to be afraid of being tired, or saying no, or making mistakes. If someone's love for you depends on how useful or impressive you are, it's not love. It's pressure in disguise. You are allowed to disappoint others in order to be kind to yourself. You are allowed to grow in directions people don't expect. And you are allowed to rest. You're not here to be everything for everyone. You're here to be whole. Not perfect, not pleasing, just whole. So take a moment and ask yourself gently, what would I do if I weren't afraid of letting people down? And maybe start there. You did everything right. You met the deadline. You passed the exam. You got the job. You hit the milestone. And yet, when the applause faded, when the messages stopped, when the celebration ended, there was a silence. Not peaceful silence, but a hollow one. Success is supposed to feel good. But sometimes it doesn't. Not because you're ungrateful, but because the achievement wasn't really yours. You did it to be good enough. You did it for approval. You did it because someone once told you that this is what matters. And now that you have it, you feel more lost than ever. This is the hidden cost of living for others. You build a life that looks right, but doesn't feel right. You wear the medals, but they don't warm your soul. You smile in the photo, but you feel disconnected inside. Success, without meaning, is a heavy crown. It weighs on your spirit instead of lifting it. So if you're here, standing in the middle of your accomplishments and still wondering why you feel so far from yourself, please know this. You're not broken. You're waking up. You're beginning to hear your own voice again, beneath the noise of praise and expectation. And that voice might whisper something radical. I want something else. That doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. The point of life isn't to impress the world. It's to know yourself. To honor what makes you feel alive. So if the success you chase no longer fits, let it go. You can build again. This time, for you. You've carried it long enough. The pressure to be perfect. The fear of disappointing others. The voice that says, if you're not extraordinary, you're nothing. It's time to put it down. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally decided to live. We grow up thinking our worth is something we earn. That it lives in trophies, or test scores, or how many people say, I'm proud of you. But you were enough the moment you took your first breath. And you'll be enough long after the world forgets your resume. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. Not to your parents. Not to your friends. Not to strangers on the internet. And not to the version of you that was always trying to keep everyone happy. You can stop running. Because the truth is, the people who really love you don't need you to be impressive. They need you to be whole. They need you to laugh again. To breathe. To rest. To tell the truth. To take up space. To be someone who chooses themselves, even when the world expects something else. It won't be easy. Letting go of the weight might feel like falling at first. But eventually, you'll feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Freedom. Not the kind you buy. Not the kind you fake. But the deep, quiet kind that says, I'm finally allowed to be me. And that's the moment your real life begins.